So just to revise what all we covered first economic activity, then we covered economic systems, capitalism, socialism, mixed economy. Then we covered sectors, primary sector, secondary sector, tertiary sector, quaternary sector, quinary sector. Then we discussed something called concept of income, what is included in income, types of income, then factor cost, basic price, market price, constant price, base year. So now we'll come to very important topic, measurements of national income. So what are these measurements of national income, sir? What is mentioned in these measurements? So when you go to a doctor wants to examine your temperature. So temperature is measured in Fahrenheit and Celsius, measurement. Height is measured in centimeters, millimeters also, measurement. So for comparison purpose or for estimation of per capita income, one of the purest form of measurement considered by globally across the world for economic growth is NNP at factor cost. Net national product at factor cost is considered to be purest form of national income estimation. Now what's meaning of this you need to understand. How do we get per capita income? So per capita income equals to national income divided by population. So what is taken as national income here, sir? NNP at factor cost. The meaning of the word NNP at factor cost is considered to be purest form of national income for comparison purpose. What do you mean of purest form? Compared to other indicators called GDP, GNP, NDP, NNP, NNP at factor cost. Just now I explained what is factor cost, what is basic price, what is market price, what is constant price. So now you'll understand what are these measurements. GDP, GNP. So to understand what is NDP, what is NNP, to measure economic activity, we have something called domestic economic territory. So what is this domestic economic territory? So gross domestic product, in the word D, domestic, does not mean English literal meaning of the word domestic. Here the meaning of the word domestic is total final value of goods and services produced in a financial year which are finished in domestic economic territory of a country. In simple, in one financial year, in primary sector, in secondary sector, in service sector, total final value of goods and services which are produced, which are finished in, literal meaning of the word English domestic is inside our country. But here for GDP calculation, inside domestic economic territory. What is inside domestic economic territory? What constitutes domestic economic territory? Any economic activity that happens in political frontiers. So what's meaning of political frontiers? Boundaries of our country. Political boundaries are there. If production of goods and services happens inside our political frontiers, that becomes part of domestic economic territory. If economic activity happens in territorial waters means from the coast up to some nautical miles. From the coast up to some nautical miles. How many nautical miles? 12 nautical miles. From the coast of a country up to some nautical miles, which is considered as territorial waters. If any economic activity happens in this, that is part of domestic economic territory. Military establishments, consulates, embassies, even though they are located outside, if economic activity happens inside them, still that is considered as part of domestic economic territory. Military establishments, consulates, embassies, even though they are located physically outside our country, if economic activity happens in them, they are considered as part of our territory. Now, what does it mean? I'll give example for all of them, you will understand. In case of aircrafts, so oil rigs, so whenever you talk about vessels, if the owner of them is resident of a country, if the owner of them is resident of a country, so what exactly the meaning of the word domestic economic territory? If goods and services are produced inside political frontiers. See, somewhere in Hyderabad, mobile phones are manufactured. It is within political frontiers of India, so it should be considered. Territorial water. So fishing is done. So probably by coastal states. From the coast up to within the designated nautical miles, that should be considered as part of GDP calculation. Third one, Indian IFS officer or Indian High Commissioner working in Indian Embassy in Iran. Indian IFS officer working in Indian Embassy in Iran. Even though physically Indian Embassy is there in Iran, it is serving on behalf of India for calculation purpose. It is considered as part of India's domestic economic territory. Meaning, a Pakistan ambassador is working in Pakistan embassy in India. Should we consider this in India GDP or Pakistan GDP? Pakistan GDP, because military establishment, consulate, embassies, even though located physically outside, for GDP calculation that is considered as domestic economic territory. In Pakistan, Indian embassy is located. Should we consider India GDP or Pakistan GDP? India GDP. So Pakistan embassy in India is part of Pakistan domestic economic territory. What is the difference between consulate and embassy? Consulate will provide general services to the public. Embassy is related to diplomatic relationship, which means visa. Recently, visa is cancelled for some couple for doing reels at World War Memorial Site by USA. So in India, people are becoming so attracted towards reels. For everything they are making reels. Hi friends, how to sleep? Reel. So visa, visitors' intention to stay abroad. So this is looked after by consulate. Diplomatic relationship. External Affairs Minister Jaishankar convinced or confused Iran, and Iran is permitting Indian ships from Strait of Hormuz. So only 3 countries, China, Russia and Indian bound ships with their national flags are permitted to pass through Strait of Hormuz. Iran has given exemption because these 3 are our good friends. There is diplomacy, embassy. Fourth, if you look at, in case of aircrafts, in case of vessels, in case of oil rigs, if the owner of them is resident for that financial year, that is called as domestic economic territory. See, one of the popular questions that is asked in the exam, which is considered as part of domestic economic territory, which is not considered as part of domestic economic territory, which means what should be included, what should not be included. So for GDP definition, I repeat once again, total final value of goods and services in one financial year in domestic economic territory. Materialistic estimation only is called as GDP. Now what does it mean, sir? It means, I repeat once again, economic activity in political frontiers, economic activity in territorial waters, and just now I said military establishments and consulates. And in case of oil rigs, aircrafts, vessels, if the owner of them is resident in that year for a country, company or the individual, it will be considered as part of that country's GDP, domestic economic territory. Example, you will understand. Air India flight is running from Heathrow to London. Air India flight is running from Heathrow to London. But who is the owner of Air India? Tata Airlines. Tata only? No. So Tata are registered under which country? So it should be considered as part of domestic economic territory of India, because the owner of Air India is Tata's. In which country they are registered organization? Resident of India. So this is called as domestic economic territory. What is excluded, sir? Couple has gone to Maldives for tour. There they are making bhaji and bona and selling to people. Indian tourists have gone to Maldives. In Maldives they are making bonda, bhaji, soup and selling to others. Should we consider India GDP or Maldives GDP? Maldives GDP, why? Economic activity is happening in their political frontiers, their domestic economic territory. Territorial waters. See in Pushpa movie, Pushpa 2, last scene, Gurtunda, boat వెళ్ళిపోతాయి కదా. Sri Lankan border, international maritime boundary, Pushpa 1 na, Pushpa 2 ah? 2 hai na? So look at economic activity beyond territorial waters is not part of domestic economic territory. Third, embassies, consulates of the foreign countries in our country are excluded, because our embassies in their territories are part of us. So their embassies in our territory are not part of us. Got clarity? What is included? What is excluded? Let's say somebody in Hyderabad is having a flat in Paris, France. So every month, tenant in this France, Paris is paying some income to this Indian person in Hyderabad. Should we consider this as part of India's GDP or France GDP? Person is staying in India. He has a flat in France, Paris near Eiffel Tower. Every month he is getting rent. So should we consider this in France GDP or India GDP? France GDP. Why? Because it is part of political frontiers, domestic economic territory of France. Clear? But only in case of oil rigs or aircrafts or vessels, we have to look at whether they are resident for that year or non-resident for that year. So this is first clarification, examiner's favorite topic. What is included? What is not included? So what is GDP, sir? Total final value of goods and services, which is represented as Q. Q means quantity of finished goods at their MP. MP means what? Market price is called as GDP. So total final value of goods and services which are produced in which sector? Primary sector, secondary sector, service sector, which are finished. Finished means which are ready for consumption, meaning intermediary goods are not considered. Defect products are not considered. Defect products are not ready for the consumption. Will you buy a scooter or a car without brakes? You can buy and give as a gift to somebody, but you should not use it. It's a defect product. Defect products are not considered. Intermediary goods, unfinished goods are not considered. So what is definition of GDP? Total final value of goods and services which are produced in a financial year, which are finished in domestic economic territory of a nation at their market price is called as GDP. Now once we know this GDP is having nominal GDP, real GDP, potential GDP, green GDP. So what is nominal GDP, sir? The definition just now we discussed. The total final value of goods and services produced at their market price, that is only is called as nominal GDP. What is real GDP, sir? See, nominal GDP may be misleading because sometimes GDP may increase not because of increase in the output but because of increase in market price. I'll give an example, you'll understand. Last year we produced 2000 goods, quantity, market price was 10. So this was nominal GDP. So probably 20,000. Last year, we produced only 1500 goods, but market price has become 30. So look at nominal GDP. Nominal GDP may increase, but look at the output that is produced. Last year we produced 2000 goods. Last year. Actually quantity produced decreased. Earlier we produced 2000 goods. Now we produced only 1500 goods. Actually quantity produced is less. But why nominal GDP increased? Because of increase in market price. So to understand the reason for change in the GDP, is it because of change in quantity of the production? Is it because of change in quantity of the market price? We also calculate not only nominal GDP but also real GDP. What is real GDP, sir? Calculate quantity of goods produced at CP. What is the meaning of CP? Constant prices of the base year. See, if I calculate quantity at market price, I am getting some number. That number may be misleading because market prices are influenced by inflation, demand and supply. So to know really how much there is change in the output, I am also calculating real GDP. At what price? Constant prices. Constant prices does not mean prices were constant. Constant prices meaning relatively in the base year, price was considered to be stable compared to other. That's the reason why we are calculating nominal GDP also. We are calculating real GDP also. So what is nominal GDP? Nominal GDP is calculated at what? Quantity at market price. So what is real GDP? Quantity at constant price. This only is called as GDP deflator. Sir, what is GDP deflator, sir? Relationship between nominal GDP and real GDP. Why, sir? In nominal GDP, market price we considered, market price included inflation. Real GDP, we are understanding how much the impact of the price rise on GDP. Because in real GDP, what price we considered? Constant price. So what is the difference between estimated nominal GDP because of impact of inflation is called as deflator. Deflator means what? Decreasing. Market price is too much because of demand and supply. So let's not look at only market price. Let's look at constant price also. The relationship will tell us how much the price change happened in goods and services in overall economy. That's why that is called as GDP deflator. Why are we reducing nominal GDP with a constant price? To understand actual real production, not because of market prices, because of output. That is the reason why GDP deflator is calculated. It is like nominal. You are studying daily 8 hours. Real. Out of that 8 hours, how much is the real productive hours? 8 minutes. No sir, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, whatever. How many hours you are studying? 8 hours. But what is the output? Real. So that is the reason why we calculate nominal GDP also. We calculate real GDP also. The relationship is examined, that's called as GDP deflator. Then what is potential GDP? Maximum number of or maximum GDP. There is no clear definition of potential GDP. However, if conditions are overall normal, if ideal situations are present in primary sector, secondary sector, service sector, if majority of the population is workforce, maximum GDP that we can achieve in optimal circumstances is called as potential GDP. See, potential GDP means how many number of hours you can study in a day? Potentially 24 hours. Potentially is 24 hours. But without disturbing your health, without disturbing your personal life, without disturbing your preparation, family time, maximum how many number of hours you can study? 12 hours. 12 hours is also too much, but still, probably potential. His potential is 12 hours. So according to your probably education life chances, potential for you to study probably maybe 6 hours. For me it is 4 hours. So what is the meaning of potential GDP? There is no clear way of measuring it. But if economy is under ideal circumstances, what is the meaning of ideal circumstances? In primary sector, in secondary sector, in tertiary sector, no abnormal deviations are there. Population, working population is at its peak. Working population is at its peak. Workforce is maximum. How much goods and services you can produce is called as potential GDP. So in a car or bike, you look at speedometer, 0 to 140. So what is the potential speed? 140. But if you go to 140, what will happen? Only vehicle will be there, person will not be there. That is the potential. But without getting hurt, based on the traffic ideal conditions, what is the ideal mileage that you have to maintain in the speed range you have to maintain? That is called as potential GDP. See, let's say in India right now 40% of population only is working. Let's say 65% of the Indian population is working, highest peak level. How much GDP you can achieve at that point of time is called as potential GDP. So what factors are influencing potential GDP? Work environment, labor force, rules and regulations, all this. Then what is green GDP, sir? In the process of producing goods and services, there is something called opportunity cost. What is opportunity cost, sir? The environmental damage that is caused in the process of producing goods and services is called as green GDP. Opportunity cost meaning, if you want to achieve certain level of production, in the process, industrialization is happening, urbanization is happening, we are destroying the natural resources. So in the process of achieving GDP, how much the environmental damage that is caused, negative externalities that is caused also should be calculated. That is called as green GDP. But actually speaking, nobody want to calculate green GDP. Why they don't want to calculate green GDP? Because no country, no government want to tell how much they damaged to the public. That's a reality. So you study something called Uttarakhand state, gross environment product, not GDP, gross environment product. What is gross environment product, sir? They assigned economic value to natural resources, for rivers, for water, for different natural resources. At the end of the year, in the process of increasing GDP and output, what happened to these economic resources? Whether we increased, whether it got decreased. Because you have to understand, when economic resources are used in the process of producing GDP, the damage that we are creating to the environment should also be estimated, which is called as opportunity cost. Opportunity cost means, if we take one decision, in that decision, the value of next best alternative is called as opportunity cost. So you came to the class from morning 7:30 to 10:30. What is the opportunity cost? You are losing valuable sleep of 3 hours. That is the opportunity cost. Because you made a choice to attend the class. That's why some are doing justice for both in the class. Understood? That is called as opportunity cost. If you prepare properly now, if you work hard now, opportunity cost in the future is, you will enjoy next 35 years. Next 2 to 3 years, if you do chili panlu in Ashok Nagar, finally next 30 to 35 years you have to struggle. Opportunity cost only. You made one choice, because which whatever is the alternative value of it is called as opportunity cost. So you choose to prepare for UPSC, because of which you sacrifice certain things. Whatever you have lost, it called as opportunity cost. So green GDP is not estimated technically, but it is becoming popular. So look at nominal GDP, real GDP, potential GDP, green GDP, gross environment product, and I told something called GDP deflator. Okay. Now look at one of the examiners' popular questions. In GDP calculation, domestic economic territory is given importance. Who produced does not matter. Where it is produced only matters. Because what is the definition of GDP? Total final value of goods and services which are produced in domestic economic territory. But we never said whether they're Indians or foreigners. We never said they're residents or non-residents. We never said they're Indian nationals or foreign nationals. So in GDP calculation, who produced does not matter. Where it is produced only matters. Which means there are some foreigners who are working in Indian IT companies in Shamshabad, high-tech city. Should we consider their economic activity as part of India GDP or not? We should consider, because ultimately that production is happening inside our domestic economic territory. That's all. We are not looking at what is their nationality. We are not looking at whether resident of our country or not all. GNP. GNP is modification where total final value of goods and services produced by residents. Very important for the exam. Not nationals. Look at the word. Residents of a country in one financial year. What meaning of resident definition, sir? In that financial year, for more than half of the days, if they stay in that particular country, they are called as resident of a country. Again, residents are classified into ordinary resident, non-ordinary resident, all sub-classifications. So how can I know that you are a resident of India? In the last 1 year, April 1st to March 31st, how many countries you visited? Bangladesh, Nepal, Thailand, Singapore, Malaysia, Ashok Nagar, Domalguda, Jawahar Nagar, Himayat Nagar, Paradise. So in the last 1 year, you never went out of India. Means you stayed in this country only. Amazon shopping address, Meesho delivery address, mobile number, recharge, SIM card, all your resident status. But if you go outside a country, in your passport, in your visa, stamping is done. Number of days you went outside to which country also is mentioned. So in one financial year, if a person is staying for more than half of the days outside a territory, then that is called as resident. Suppose your friend is working in USA as a software engineer. He stayed in America for more than 8 months. So will he become resident or non-resident? Non-resident. So we call it as NRI, non-resident Indian. Non-resident Indian, NRI only? No. Look at GNP definition. Total final value of goods and services produced in our country as well as rest of the world by our residents. Look at the word, not nationals, residents. Meaning, in that year, if a particular individual had stayed in India for more than half of the days, economic activities in our country as well as in the world should be considered in GNP calculation. So this example, your friend who is working as a software engineer in USA last year stayed in USA for more than 8 months. So should we consider them as part of India GNP or America GNP? I didn't ask GDP, I'm asking GNP. So an Indian who is staying in America and working in a software company for more than 8 months, should we consider them as part of India GNP or America GNP? America GNP. Why? Because he is non-resident for us. He is non-resident means he is resident for which country? USA. So it should be considered as part of America GNP, not India GNP. Did you understand what I am saying? Opposite. Israel scientist is working in Indian ISRO. He stayed here for more than 9 months in the last year. Should we consider in India GNP or Israel GNP? India GNP. Why? Because he became resident. Got clarity? Nationality is different. Resident status is different. In polity, you will study citizenship. Citizenship Act 1955. Article 5 to 11. Birth, descent, registration, naturalization, incorporation of territory, Assam card. A person can become Indian citizen. Something you'll study. Kanta uncle said. Lakshmi Kanta uncle. So citizens are classified into. People are classified into citizens and aliens for civil and political purpose, which is called as citizenship. For economic activity, people are classified into residents and non-residents. So in GDP calculation, what is given importance? Territory. GNP calculation, what is given importance? Resident status. You do understand what I am saying? There are some foreign country residents who are working in our territory. There are some Indian residents working in foreign territory also. So in simple, how do we get GNP, sir? In GDP, whenever we calculate, there is something called net factor income from abroad. So what is this net factor income from abroad, sir? So if you look at total final value of goods and services produced in a country, it can be produced by Indians also, it can be produced by foreigners also, it does not matter. Income earned by Indians abroad minus income earned by foreigners in India. Because in GNP calculation, what is given importance? Resident status. In simple, look at the word. Net factor income from abroad means our residents are earning from different parts of the world. Similarly, foreigners are also earning income from India, because the difference only is called as net factor income from abroad. In a simple way to tell, from last April 1st to March 31st, what are the various goods and services produced by our residents in different parts of the world? Look at the word. Our residents are producing different goods and services in different parts of the world. Meaning, how much we are getting from the world. And foreign residents are also earning in our country by producing goods and services. Whether incoming is more or outgoing is more, the difference is called as net factor income from abroad. Because in GNP calculation, what is considered? Resident status is considered. So whenever we talk about what is net factor income from abroad, sir, it is the difference between total income received by our residents from foreign country and probably the foreign country people who earn the income in India. Suppose Indian resident is having different hotels, restaurants, businesses in foreign countries. But for that year, for calculation purpose, they became resident of us. So they have a source of income here also, they have a source of income abroad also. Only look at the word, not our nationals, our residents. So clarity is, GDP calculation who produced does not matter. In GNP calculation, total income earned by our residents, not our nationals. Total income earned by our residents, not only in our territory, but also in different parts of the world, is called as GNP, Gross National Product. So whenever we talk about comparison, how questions are asked? See, very simple example to understand. In GDP, so there are some foreigners, there are some non-residents also. And Indian residents are earning abroad. So if our Indian residents are earning abroad, that is added to GDP. If, look at the word, non-residents, because they are not part of our country, we should not consider them, we are subtracting them. So that is only is called as GNP. Total final value of goods and services is called as GDP. In that, residents also are there, non-residents also are there. But in GNP calculation, what we should consider? Only resident part. So resident part not only in our country but also in different parts of the world. Whom we should not consider? Non-residents economic activity we should not consider. That only we have written earlier. See, look at GNP equals to GDP plus net factor income from abroad. The simplest meaning of the definition is this. Comparison is asked in the exam. So what is the comparison? You will get a clarity. Goods and services produced by anybody in India is considered in GDP. It does not matter whether residents or non-residents. But goods and services produced only by residents is considered in GNP. Did you understand? Second, goods and services produced only in domestic economic territory is considered. Whereas in GNP calculation, goods and services produced by residents not only in domestic economic territory but also different parts of the world is considered. That is the difference between GDP and GNP. I repeat the statement once again. Goods and services produced by anybody in our domestic economic territory is considered in GDP. They might be resident, they might be non-resident. But in GNP calculation, goods and services produced by our residents, look at the word, residents only is considered. Second statement, in GDP calculation, economic activity inside domestic economic territory only is considered. But in GNP calculation, goods and services produced by residents not only in our territory but also in different parts of the world is considered. That's the fundamental difference between GDP and GNP. Okay, if you just know this difference, whatever way examiner frame the question, you will be able to answer. Now, once we know GDP, GNP, NDP, NNP is very simple because NDP, NNP is not used for economic growth comparison. They are used for accounting purpose to replace the plant and machineries, so which is called as GDP minus depreciation, which is called as NNP, GNP minus depreciation. So what's meaning of depreciation, sir? In the process of producing goods and services, we are using capital goods. Capital goods means goods which are used in the process of the production, plant, machinery, equipment. At the end of the year, their value got decreased. So what is the net that we produced is called as net domestic product. See, in a textile garment factory, we purchased new plant and machinery starting of the year. We produced 10 lakh worth goods in the year. And at the end of the year, to produce this 10 lakh worth goods, the plant and machinery value got depreciated. That is only called as NDP. What is net domestic product, sir? From GDP, we are calculating depreciation. Why, sir? Because of use of wear and tear, use of capital goods, plant and machinery, starting of the financial year April 1st, ending of the financial year March 31st, because goods are used in the process of production, value got decreased. So we have to look for opportunity cost of the decrease in the value also. That's the reason why we calculate NDP and NP. One of the previous year question. Why NDP and NP are not used for economic growth comparison? Answer. Depreciation vary from country to country based on accounting standards. Meaning, we are comparing India GDP and India is the fourth largest economy in the world right now in terms of nominal GDP by overtaking Japan. But India is third largest economy in terms of purchasing power parity. So in external sector, we are going to cover purchasing power parity. But data, India is the fourth largest economy in the world by overtaking Japan in terms of nominal GDP. Third largest economy in the world in terms of purchasing power parity. Why NDP and NNP are not used for economic growth comparison? Depreciation vary from accounting standards from country to country. Base is not uniform, you cannot compare. Meaning an IT company is procuring a laptop system for the employees. We consider in India, lifespan of the system is 10 years. Means after 10 years, that system value will become 0. For every year, 10% is the depreciation. Because 10 years is the lifespan. So after 10 years, it becomes 0. 100% value by 10 years. For every year, depreciation is 10%. Same laptop in China, they are thinking the lifespan is only 6 years. It means in their country, 100% value divided by 6. So per year they are calculating depreciation is roughly around 16 to 17%. You cannot compare something when the bases are different. Depreciation is different from country to country, so you cannot compare NDP and NNP. Previous year question. Why NDP and NNP are not used for economic growth comparison? Answer: depreciation vary from country to country. Then what is the use of calculating NDP and NNP? If I purchase a plant and machinery today, before the completion of the lifespan of that plant and machinery, I have to look for alternative. I have to plan replacement of plant and machinery. That is the reason why I calculate NDP and NNP for accounting purpose. So this is called as GDP, GNP, NDP, NNP. These measurements can be estimated. These are measurements. These measurements can be estimated at any of the indicators. What are the indicators? Factor cost, basic price, market price, constant price. However, for per capita income calculation to estimate economic growth, so based on United Nations System of Accounting 2008, we consider NNP at factor cost is purest form of national income. That's the reason why in almost every textbook, national income is defined as NNP at factor cost. Why, sir? Market price may be misleading because of so much of taxes. Basic price also involves so much of production taxes. But really, how many goods and services are produced? How much is the expenditure incurred for production of goods and services known at what? Factor cost. So that's the reason why GNP, sir? Not only goods and services produced in our territory, but also produced in different parts of the world by our residents. That's why for per capita income calculation, most of the countries are considering NNP at factor cost as the purest form of national income. Okay, these are called as measurements of national income and why it is used. So once we know, then methods of national income estimation: income method, expenditure method, production method. Very easy only. So what is the definition of national income? Return received by factors of production in the process of economic activity in one financial year is called as national income. So in one financial year, if we add total rent, total salary, total interest, total profit, return for land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship in the process of economic activity in primary sector, secondary sector, tertiary sector, that is called as national income under income method. What is expenditure method? Three important words are there: circular flow of money and circular economy. Because last year, trap in the prelims, circular flow of money is different. Circular economy is different. Circular economy is a concept in which recycle, rejuvenate, reduce, reuse in the process, reduce the waste, which is called as circular economy, which means keep using the different materials in the process of manufacturing again and again, reduce the waste, is called as circular. So on your notebook, recyclable paper is mentioned. What's the meaning of recyclable paper? So after you became IAS officer, you are throwing them in, probably in Koti, you are selling all the books. So the recycled, the paper is recycled and introduced again. Waste got reduced. That is called as circular economy. Reduce, reuse, recycle, refurbish, rejuvenate. These are the part of circular economy. See, in exchange offer would be there for goods, services, of course. It should not be available for live partners, but that's also is available now. Exchange. Why old product is exchanged? Because you want to update and upgrade for new product. So you're exchanging a old product. What do they do? That old product is refurbished. Some polishing is done and re-released into the market. Nothing is waste. Nobody is a waste fellow on the planet Earth. He is called as circular economy. Time will tell their value. Understood? Time will tell their value. Indian mythology, circular flow of karma in a person's life. So what do you mean of circular flow of a karma in a person's life? Whatever good you do to others will come back to you multiple times. Whatever bad you do to others will come back to you in multiple times. So why I am teaching to you in the class? Because of the previous karma that I have done in previous janma. Probably all of you are my teachers in previous janma, so I am reaping debt in this janma. Understood? Circular flow of karma. So circular flow of economy is, in economic activity, there are two dimensions. Income of one person is expenditure of other person. Expenditure of one person is income of other person. In the process, money keeps on moving. That is called as circular flow of money. Morning, you booked Rapido. You paid 200 rupees to Rapido driver. So money is moving from you to Rapido driver. He is going to a petrol bunk. Money is moving to petrol bunk. Petrol bunk has given that 200 rupees to the worker who is working there. And they have gone to market to purchase vegetables. You look at the flow of the money. Every time goods and services are exchanged, money is moving from one person to other person. Flow of money. When economic activity is happening, when exchange of goods and services is happening, is called as circular flow of money. So circular flow of money is different. Circular economy is different. Last year, direct question came. Circular economy reduces waste in the economy. Circular economy reduces waste in a country. The more the circular flow of the money, the more the economic activity, the more the GDP growth. One more statement. The more the circular flow of money, meaning number of times goods and services are getting exchanged more, the more the economic activity, the more the GDP growth. So two statements are given and asked you to find out which of the following statements are correct. So circular economy reduces waste. Circular flow of money improves economic activity. So this is the concept clarity called circular flow of money, circular economy. So once we know this, expenditure method. In one financial year, total, final consumption expenditure, investors expenditure, government expenditure, and net burden on the government is called as total national income in expenditure method. C indicates all consumption final expenditure. Last year April 1st to March 31st, how much shopping you have done, how much money you paid, total consumption final expenditure. Investors final expenditure. See, look at, investor may be manufacturer of something, but he may be consumer of somebody else. That's why consumer is separated, investor is separated. A person is owner of bookshop in Ashok Nagar. So the expenditure that he is spending for renovation of the bookshop is investor's expenditure. But he is also buying textiles, he is also buying electronic items. That is his consumer expenditure. To avoid duplication, we separated consumer expenditure, we separated investor's expenditure. Government expenditure. What is fiscal policy? Management of income and expenditure with government is called as fiscal policy. So government is spending so much money on schemes and scams every year. So total expenditure on schemes, scams, whatever, all. That is called as government expenditure. Suddenly they remember public welfare just before the elections. Suddenly they release the notifications 1 year before. Why? They love the youth. They love the farmers. When? 1 year before the elections. So probably government expenditure. Exports. See, when will exports of a country increases? First you have to produce. Then only you can export. Exports are increasing means what happened to production of goods? Increased. Imports. In what circumstances we import? We are not producing them. That's the reason why we are importing from foreign country. So when we export, income for us. When we import, expenditure for us. But what is the net burden? Is income more or expenditure more? That's why we call it as X minus M. So in one financial year, in the process of producing goods and services, total consumption expenditure, investors expenditure, government expenditure, burden on the government by adjusting exports and imports throughout the year. Finally, world has to pay to us or we have to pay to the world. If exports are more than imports, income for the government would be more, expenditure burden would decrease. If imports are more than exports, burden on the government would increase, expenditure burden would increase. Then what is production method? Total final value of goods and services which are finished, which are produced at their market price is called as production method, which is referred as Q into MP. What is the meaning of Q? Quantity of finished products in primary sector, secondary sector, service sector. Add all of them. That is called as production method. Okay. So previous year question. If X equals to M, in expenditure method, national income equals to C, C plus I, C plus I plus G. Direct question. What is the total national income in expenditure method? C plus I plus G plus X minus M. But what does the question says? X equals to M. Meaning X minus M will become 0. So what is national income? C plus I plus G. LKG question only. I mean easy question only. Now, India follows what type of method in estimation of national income? NSO follows mixed method or combined method in estimation of national income. So what's the meaning of mixed method or combined method? Combination of income method, expenditure method, production method. Overall is called a combined method. So we are following what type of method? Combined method in estimation of national income. Okay. So this is question from methods of estimation of national income. So now business cycles: boom, slowdown, recession, double dip recession, depression, recovery. Types of recovery. Boom. If continuously there is increase in the GDP growth year after year for prolonged time, that is called as boom in the economy. Starting of the class, first 10 minutes, concentration is in boom. Now sleep is in boom stage. Correct only? Coming to class at 7:30 is very difficult, sir. So boom. So a boy became IPS officer. What happens to his market value? Boom. Till the day before the result, nobody was bothering about him. Suddenly he'll become overnight superstar. So what happens to market value? Boom. Understood? So anyway, Jagannath's boom also earlier. So one of the popular brands. To increase your preparation, you should taste boom also. So that is called as boom. Slowdown. GDP growth rate is there, but growth rate is positive. However, it is less compared to previous. I'll give the number, you will understand. Earlier GDP growth rate is 4%, 14%, 34%, and continuously increasing. Boom. Slowdown. Earlier GDP growth rate was 6%. So growth rate is 8%. Now growth rate is 9%. Look at the growth rate. 6 to 8 plus 2% is there. 8 to 9 only plus 1%. Growth is there, but growth is less compared to previous. Growth is still positive. That is called as slowdown. You look at last year 6 to 8%. There is positive growth rate of 2%. Last year to current year there is growth rate of 1%. Growth rate is there, but it is less compared to previous or base year. That's why that's called as slowdown. Recession. Technically, for any two consecutive quarters, if growth rate is negative means the total final value of goods and services which are produced are less compared to previous, then only growth rate will become negative. Last quarter GDP value is 10 lakhs, current quarter GDP value is 7 lakhs, next quarter again GDP value is only 3 lakhs. So for the last 2 quarters growth rate is negative technically, then that is called as recession. Double dip recession. Before recovering from the previous recession, we are falling back into recession again. That is called as double dip recession. Before recovering from previous breakup, one more breakup happened. That's called as a double dip recession. Because no wake up, because they trusted makeup. That's called as a double dip recession. So a person failed in group 1 result. Before recovering from that, UPSC results also failed. Double dip recession. Next year, All India first rank. Boom, boom happened. Depression. Some of you are already suffering from this. If recession continues for prolonged time, where it's very difficult to get the economy out of negative economic activity, that is called as depression. So great economic depression happened after World War I, because most of the money was spent by the countries for war. There was no money in economic activity, no production of goods and services. For prolonged time, there is no difference of goods and services. That's the reason why we call it as double depreciation, and it's also called as depression. Now see, look at US, look at Iran. Probably whoever win the war, whoever lose the war, both of them are going to cry. Those who lose the war, they will cry in the war. Those who win the war, they will go home and cry. Both are crying. Why? Because they feel crying. The funds which supposed to be used for developmental purpose, infrastructure development, growth purpose is diverted towards non-developmental expenditure, which will lead us to get to depression. It's very difficult to get the economy out of depression. Okay? So this is called as business cycles. So how questions are asked in the exam? Employment increases in boom. Do you agree? Employment increases in boom. What does it mean? We are producing more and more GDP. To produce more and more GDP, you have to recruit more and more people. So if there is a boom in the economy, employment is expected to increase. In recession, unemployment increases. In recession means we are not producing goods and services. Instead of hiring the people, we are firing the people. So fire the trouble, trouble the trouble. So because it's what is happening. In recession, unemployment is increasing. And very direct question came. Economic growth is generally coupled with inflation. Meaning if economy is booming, economy is growing, what happens to income of the people? So what happens to purchasing capacity? What happens to demand for goods and services? What happens to prices? So generally economic growth is coupled with inflation. So previous year question based on business cycles. Recovery. From any negative business cycle, trying to coming back to normal position is called as recovery. So hope you recovered from shock of economy class. Correct only? So starting too much shock, sir. Now suddenly recovered, sir. So what do you mean of recovery? Some negative business cycle was there. From that negative business cycles, there is a positive optimistic future, which is called as recovery. Recovery can be used recovery from slowdown, recovery from recession, recovery from double depreciation, recovery from depression. But why don't we use the word recovery in case of boom? There is nothing to recover. See, if you are not feeling well only, then you will recover. If a friend is not feeling well, you will wish a friend speedy recovery. He's healthy. So no need to recover from anything. So boom, slowdown, recession, depression, double dip recession, recovery are the business cycle. Business cycle means sometimes economy will go through the cycle, sometimes economic activity will go through the business cycle, sometimes economic activity will go through all this. These are called as business cycles. Okay? Then feeling hungry, feeling angry. So just one last topic in before 2015, after 2015, what happened in national income estimation? 3-4 important points are there, so which you are supposed to know. Because now base year is revised, but earlier in 2015, base year was revised. So what were the 3 major changes that happened in estimation of national income before 2015, after 2015? Before 2015, so 2004-5 was the base year. After 2015, base year was revised to 2011-12. Now revised to 22-23. Okay? Nominal GDP was calculated at factor cost earlier. After 2015, nominal GDP is calculated at market price. Okay? Earlier, in agriculture, only crop production was considered, livestock was not considered. But after 2015, in agriculture, crop production as well as livestock is also considered. Which means when we are calculating in primary sector, total final value of goods and services, not only income from the crops, income from animal husbandry, income from integrated farming, agricultural allied activities also should be considered. Earlier, around 2 lakh company data was considered in industrial sector, secondary sector. Now we are considering around 5 lakh company data in calculation of national income in secondary sector, which is more wider sample. Earlier we used to consider only RBI data for financial investments. Now we are considering more financial data from all regulatory bodies. Earlier, sector-wise gross value addition was not calculated. Now we are calculating sector-wise gross value addition at the basic price. Primary sector also, secondary sector also, tertiary sector also. What's meaning of value addition? To produce a final product, how much the intermediary consumption used is called as value addition. What is gross value addition? Total value addition in the sector is called as gross value addition. So a simple example to understand, let's say from sugarcane of 60 rupees, we produced 100 rupees of sugar. From this, we manufactured 170 rupees of chocolates. Sugarcane was the raw material which was used in production of the final product. So final product was how much? 100 rupees. So how much the intermediary consumption? 60 rupees. So how much the value addition that happened? 40. From this sugar, we have produced sugar candies. How much the value addition that happened? So what is the total gross value addition? From the 60 rupees of the raw material in the process of becoming chocolates. So total gross value addition happened is this much. This is only one example. Like this in primary sector, secondary sector, service sector. So in last one financial year, starting of the year, closing of the year, how much is the total value addition that happened is called as GVA. It's like overall GDP is growing. But because of which sector GDP is growing? Primary sector is growing, secondary sector or service sector. That's called GVA, gross value addition. Then list out one data from economic survey. Primary sector, secondary sector, service sector, percentage of livelihood and percentage of GDP contribution. List out the data from current year economic survey, because trend analysis they might ask. But roughly if you look at from service sector, around 57% of GDP is coming from service sector. From primary sector, around 16% GDP is coming. Remaining is coming from secondary sector. But if you look at percentage of livelihood, around 30% of population depend upon service sector. Around 20 to 25% of the population depend upon secondary sector. So remaining 40 to 45% of population depend upon primary sector. Exact numbers listed from the economic survey. Because sometimes they might ask the numbers also. Exact numbers, approximate numbers, probably. So in 1950s, India was primarily primary sector based economy. Now India is service sector based economy. So India is primarily service sector based economy in terms of livelihood. No, false. India is primarily service sector based economy in terms of GDP contribution. Previous year question. Based on sector wise contribution, question was ordered. Out of total national income, majority of the gross value addition comes from service sector. Out of total national income contribution, majority of gross value addition comes from service sector. Okay, so this is probably essence of national income chapter. Expected themes for this year: IMF has given C rating, second lowest rating to India's NSO, middle income trap, Goldilocks economy, then static concepts, domestic economic territory, factor cost, basic price, market price, constant price. India is the fourth largest economy in the world in terms of nominal GDP, third largest in terms of PPP. Just now we covered important changes happened in 2015, revised base year. So after that we covered something called primary, secondary, tertiary sector. Then, so if you look at probably business cycles, regular repeated theme, then methods. So which method NSO is following, combined method or mixed method. Then we covered something called measurements, GDP, GNP, NDP, NNP. So which is considered to be purest form of national income, NNP at factor cost, difference between GDP and GNP, important point, resident and non-resident, domestic economic territory. So types of income, national income, per capita income, nominal income, disposable income, and confusing questions, circular flow of money and circular economy. Circular flow of money is different, circular economy is different. So after that we covered factor cost, basic price, types of income, types of economic activity. Last expected theme, Kuznets curve. So don't worry, I won't extend, this is only last concept. Simon Kuznets, who is called as the father of national income, says something about economic growth and inequalities in the society, which is called as Kuznets curve. So what does this Kuznets curve says? Initially, when economic growth is happening in a country, income inequalities will increase. When economic growth becomes economic development in the long run, income inequalities supposed to decrease. So this belief system is called as Kuznets curve. Simon Kuznets says, initially when economic growth is happening in a country, meaning GDP is growing in a country, income inequalities would actually increase. But when state is using this material wealth for the economic development, when redistribution of wealth is happening, when economic growth is becoming economic development, income inequality is supposed to decrease. But India's case, second part is not happening. What does it mean? Economic growth is happening, but income inequalities are not decreasing in India's case. Actually, the difference between rich and the poor is supposed to decrease. The difference between rich and poor is increasing only, but not decreasing. So this observation is called as Kuznets curve. Okay? So probably try to solve previous year questions. So probably, so this is my Telegram ID, IAS Educare. So in that, look at economy folder. Probably I will post some of the questions from today's topic and some short notes PDF also from national income. So just to revise, apart from what all we discussed in the class. So IAS Educare is Telegram channel. In that economy folder, just keep looking at national income. Today over, I'll post short notes of national income also. previous year 10-15 questions of national income also. Just you can solve. Already we covered, but to revise. So tomorrow probably I will be covering inflation and monetary policy. So once you are thorough with all these themes, whatever question comes in the exam, you should be able to answer. Okay. Thank you. Tomorrow we'll try to cover inflation and monetary policy.